Okay, welcome everybody to our Thursday night Rockin' call. As you all know, you are on here because you are so excited to see Bob Heilig, who has been so generous to come on our call tonight. And before we get started, I just want to thank you, Bob, for taking the time. I know that it goes without saying that you're a busy man, and I've been asking you for a long time and begging you for a long time. So you were gracious enough to do this. Finally made it happen. Yes. But I mean, you had some really big, huge projects in the midst of all of that. Yeah. And everybody on our team follows you. I just want you to know that.
Well, I see lots of familiar names and faces. So hello to everyone.
Yeah, I bet you do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to let Bob just kick it off because he said he has about a 30-minute training for us, and then he will answer a few questions for us. So, Bob, welcome to our Rockin' team. You are real familiar with Plexus because you spoke in Maui and you're speaking at convention. Yeah. So I know you know a lot about our company.
Yeah, I think I've heard of Plexus before. Yeah.
You've heard a little bit about us.
Sounds familiar to me. It's ringing a bell. I feel like I am an honorary member of Plexus at this point. I spend so much time working with Plexus leaders, and had the good fortune to speak at the Emerald Retreat in Maui last year, and super excited to be speaking on stage at your national conference in June, which for whatever it's worth, just a little side note, that will be by far the largest audience that I'll have ever spoken in front of. So that'll be a pretty cool experience for me as well. But
exciting.
Yeah, but I love your company. I love all the people that I've met that are a part of it. I think that the kind of the heart and soul of your company and the leaders, it really aligns with my teaching and my philosophies when it comes to network marketing. And tonight I am going to, we have somebody, a little background noise.
I know, I'm trying to find out who it is that,
if you just mute everybody out again, I can just
okay,
unmute.
I'll do that.
That's usually the easiest way to do it.
All righty.
Okay, cool. So I was thinking about, what could I really put together in terms of a training here for you tonight? And I know that, I know I don't know all of you, but here's what I know about you. If you're on this Zoom here tonight, depending on where you are, it's 9:00 at night for me. Maybe it's 8:00 for most of you, but I know that you're a committed leader in your business. Otherwise you wouldn't be on this Zoom tonight. And maybe you don't consider yourself a leader yet, because maybe you don't think you've gotten the results that that would warrant you being a leader. But I'm going to give you a different way to look at that tonight. But I really want to talk to all of you as leaders, and I want to share with you some insights, things that I've learned over time. I've been around this profession for, I'm going to date myself, almost the better part of 20 years now. I spent over 10 years as a representative, just like all of you, and a little over 10 years. And then I've spent, the last 3 to 4 years, there was a little span of time in between then, but I've spent the last 3 or 4 years really building a training company. And I've had I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of different leaders from all over the place. And I've just learned some things that, that I wish that I knew in the early days of starting my business about success and really what it takes to build a successful business. And I'm going to share some of the most important ones with you tonight. And we're really going to focus on the inner game of success, because, the more I teach this stuff and the more I study it and I find out what people really need, what I'm realizing is that it really is the inner game that's holding most people back, whether you realize that or not. And, when I think back to my early days in this profession, I did not get off to a really great start. As a matter of fact, if you've never heard my story before, I'll just give you the really abbreviated version. In my first year, I wasn't able to recruit a single person. I was able to acquire a total of 2 customers. One of those was myself. The other was my mom. And which is pitiful in and of itself, but it gets even worse when you hear the next part. I was working with a network marketing company that was marketing long distance phone service. So let me explain to you why that's more pitiful. I wasn't even asking people for money I was saving them money on a bill that they were paying anyway, and I still couldn't even get anybody to do it. So, that first year was not fun. And, I look back on it, and I always love sharing that in the beginning of my trainings, because I know that, we've got about 65 people on this Zoom right now. I know by the law of averages, there's a number of you on here right now that are probably feeling a little frustrated and stuck in your business. And, if you're in that space, I know what it feels like. I know how lonely it can be. And sometimes that dark place that we go to when things aren't happening on our timetable. And we see other people around us having success, and sometimes they go right by us, and we're out there and we're working hard, and, we consider ourselves a good person and we're doing things the right way. And, I can remember many, many meetings, and, this was before we had the liberty of doing things like this, like Zooms and video conferencing. And, we didn't even have social media when I started in network marketing, right? Like, so I don't know if any of you have been around that long, but I can remember, like getting mad at my team for texting me too much because we paid for text messages and stuff, and, like crazy stuff when we think about it. But I could remember, we used to have to drive to people's houses to present the business to them. And I can remember dozens and dozens of times driving hours to a meeting where nobody showed up. And on my way home late at night, driving in the dark, and I had to go to work early the next day. And I just remember, like just tears in my eyes, like welling up with emotion, just saying, God, why is this not happening for me? I'm a good person. I'm working hard. Why is this business not happening for me? And I didn't understand at the time, but looking back now, it's really clear to me that we go through the things we go through in our life for a reason. And when I talk about that first year, it's really one of the things, as crazy as this is to say, it's one of the things I'm most thankful for, because it's the challenges and the adversity that I was able to get through. I didn't quit. I kept going. They really shaped my character and made me the person and the leader that I became. And I just share that with you here to start off, because I just want you to know I can relate to you no matter where you're at. But I'm also going to let you know, I'm going to share some things with you tonight that, man, I wish somebody would have told me this stuff when I first started, because it would have made my life a lot easier. I really believe I would have got to success much faster. And here's the first thing I want to start off with. And if you're taking notes, this would be a real good thing to write down. Success is not a matter of doing. It is a matter of being. Most people have this completely wrong. I spent the first 2 to 3 years of my career thinking that success was a matter of doing, that in order for me to make more money or get more results, I just had to work harder and do more, right? I would go into every single year, and maybe you can relate, I'd set these big goals for myself, right? I want to make this much money. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to hit this rank. And it was usually a stretch. And I would do that, and in the back of my mind, it would feel really kind of fake, right? Because I'm like, I don't really know that I believe this is possible. But this is what my mentor told me. He said, Bob, you got to set big goals. You got big dreams, right? So that's what I would do. And then the first thing that I would say is, what would I need to do in order to make that happen? Well, I got to prospect more people. I got to give more presentations. I got to follow up. I got to train this, and that. See, most people, when it comes to success, they focus on the doing. They focus on things outside of themselves. And if that's your approach to your business, here's what's going to happen for a lot of you. You're going to find that you really struggle with motivation. You're going to be very inconsistent, right? Let me see people that I can see here now. Let me see a show of hands if you guys, if I'm reading your mail right now. You guys struggle with motivation and consistency, right? Well, that's what I did. I'll tell you what else I was. I literally wrote the book on self-sabotage, right? Anybody do that as well? These are all symptoms of someone that has not addressed what is really going on in that play in their business, which is this. When we talk about success being a matter of being, who you are being in your business is leadership. I used to think this. I used to think that I wasn't going to be a leader. I'm not a leader until I have a team. I'm not a leader until I hit that rank. I'm not a leader until I have the results. So what I was doing, whether I realized it or not, I was actually tying my self-worth to my external results. I thought because I didn't have a downline that I wasn't a leader. That made me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I was doing something wrong. And I think we all, if we're honest with ourselves, we all struggle with issues of self-worth. And we all have these limiting beliefs about ourselves, whether we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, all this stuff is at play. And what I want you to realize is that is the very thing that is holding you back right now in your business, because this is what I've come to learn. That your external results, size of your downline, the size of your check, the things you have around you, the quality of your relationships, your physical health, your spiritual health, your financial health, all of the things that make up your current reality are simply a reflection of what is going on inside of your head. Your external world is a reflection of your internal world. And unless you address this area, and unless you create what we call a new identity for yourself as it pertains to your business, you are always going to feel like you're running an uphill battle. And the thing that I've learned, and it took me over 10 years to figure this out, you will never out-earn or outperform the person that deep down inside you believe yourself to be. If you don't think you're worthy, if you don't think you're good enough, if you are poor in your mind, I'm telling you, there is no amount of massive action or desire or scripts or this or that in the world that's ever going to make a difference for you. Because here's the reason why. And some of you have experienced this over and over and over again. Look, you don't need me to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. You already know what to do. Like, this is not rocket science, this business. You get this, right? There's only a handful of things that you do that make you money. Talk to new people. Share your product, share your business, follow up with them. Are you interested? Great. Present, sign up, train them. That's it. I mean, that's the business right there. That's it. But here's the problem we have. We don't do that consistently, or we don't do it at all. We don't do it enough. Here's the reason why. If you're starting from a place of unworthiness, if that's the story that you've created in your head about yourself, you'll start off doing the right things, but you'll never do them long enough because you'll be too focused on the results. And what will happen is the moment that you don't see the results, your mind will say, see, that's proof that you're not good enough. So your worthiness will be directly tied to whether someone says yes or no. Or that's why you don't even take action, because you're afraid of what they'll say or what they'll do. And this is the reason why we stay stuck, because we create this identity, and your identity is made up of your thoughts. It's made up of your beliefs about yourself, and it's made up of the stories that you make up and create about your business. And most of you, if I could use an analogy, you're trying to run a race, right? You can see the finish line, but you got an anchor tied around your waist that's holding you back. And I'll tell you one thing, it is not easy to run a race with an anchor tied around your waist. And that's what your identity is doing to you. Now, here's the important thing I want you to understand. All of that stuff you made up about yourself at some point. Right? We go through life and we interpret the things that happen to us. Somebody says no, somebody quits, somebody doesn't join, someone says or does something to us at some point in our life. And we decide that that meant that we weren't good enough. It was all just an interpretation. It was our own decision. So we created this identity. We made it up. That's important to understand, because when you wake up and you become conscious of this playing in your life, you can consciously choose a new identity for yourself. Here's one of the most important things that I've ever learned. When I learned this concept, like, this was one of the things that I was like, it literally made me just stop in my tracks and think about every area of my life that I wasn't happy with. And it was like one of those moments where I literally felt like I got hit by a Mack truck, but it was in a good way. Here's what I want you to realize. Your current circumstances, okay, like what's happening around you. Some of you are like, I'm not all that happy about that. Your current circumstances are evidence of your past thinking. Your current circumstances are evidence of the thoughts that you thought yesterday and the day before. Now, some of you are like, I don't like what I see. Well, it's because you had negative thinking in your past, because this is the way this works. You think a thought. That thought generates an emotion inside of you. And depending on the way you feel, that will determine if you show up and actually do the work. So thought creates an emotion. The emotion determines whether you do the thing. And here's what I can tell you. If you consistently don't do the thing, you're not going to like the results. If you consistently do the thing, you're going to like the results. And it literally is as simple. Now, it doesn't mean this is not easy, but it is as simple as consciously choosing different thoughts that you decide to think about yourself. Look, I can promise you one thing. If the prevailing thought in your mind is that you're not good enough, or that, I'm overwhelmed all the time, I'm discouraged, like, these are interpretations. You choose this in your mind. If that's your thought, you're not going to feel really good about yourself. And when you don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to take action. But here's the miracle in this process. If you can start paying attention to your thoughts and start paying attention to the way that you talk to yourself, one of the things that we have a lot of our students do is we literally have them start to write down the story that they've created about why they're not successful in their business. So like if I said to you, complete this sentence: my business is not where I want it to be because of blank. Every one of you has a story about why that is, right? I'm not good enough. This person does that. I've got an unsupportive spouse. I live in an area that does this, and my friends are that. There's all this stuff that we have created as the reason why we're not where we want to be. What's an interesting thing to do is if you can bring light to those thoughts and stories, if you can get them out, you start to understand how, number one, sometimes how ridiculous they sound, but number two, you look at the way that you talk to yourself on a daily basis and you think, I would never say that to another human being, but I say it to myself every single day. And you wonder why. And you do this, by the way, you just do this completely unconsciously. You don't even realize it. And here it is. It's just this self-perpetuating circle of stuckness that you stay in. So when we learn how to start choosing our thoughts, what begins to happen is we can create better emotions. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. One of the things that I learned that really changed my life, I actually learned this from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins says if you can trade your expectations for appreciation, your life will change in an instant. And here's the one thing I want you to think about. You have any area of your life where you're feeling pain and suffering and discouragement, I promise you, it's because you had an expectation that was unmet. You expected someone to say yes. You expected someone to say something. You expected someone to do or act a certain way. You expected your business to be at a certain point, and it didn't happen the way you expected. See, it is your desire to try to control the outcomes and control what other people do and say that is making you miserable. Eventually, you have to realize you can't control other people, okay? Here's what you can control: the way you show up in the world in relation to other people. See, when you stop expecting and you learn how to stop focusing on the negative and what you don't have, and you start appreciating the things that you do, whatever you focus on, you attract more of into your life. Now, the best way I know to do this is the practice of gratitude. Like if every morning, if you woke up and you literally forced yourself to find little things in your life that you could be grateful for, here's what would happen. It would generate, after you've done that for a week or two, it would that gratitude, that appreciation would create positive emotions that would actually inspire you to take action. So the positive thought, the positive emotion, you take action. And then here's where this becomes so powerful. The evidence of your future circumstances are your thoughts of today. What were your thoughts today? Did you think negative thoughts today? You just started creating a negative future for yourself. See, if we can start choosing different thoughts, we are literally creating a better future for ourselves. It is inevitable. If you think good thoughts, if you have good emotions, and if you follow through with action, you will absolutely improve your future circumstances. But most people get stuck in this pattern of negative thinking. And I'm spending a lot of time on this because I really, really want this to sink in for some of you, that this is the thing that is really holding you back. But here's where this starts to become really powerful. So if we can start changing the way we think, if we can start talking to ourselves in a little bit of a more empowering way, if we can start generating positive emotions and taking action, here's where the big payoff comes here. See, a lot of the people that I've coached, one of the things I hear most often, and let me see a show of hands here. If you believe that one of your biggest obstacles is a fear of failure, raise your hand and let me see. So almost every one of you. Fear of failure is one of the things I hear most common from people, okay? Well, I want to give you a different way to look at failure today, okay? And I want to make the argument that failure actually doesn't exist. That failure is simply a construct of your mind. Failure is just your interpretation of something, and it's what you call when someone says no to you or when something doesn't go the way that you want. And failure, really, we call something failure because we're afraid, we tie our own worthiness to that thing, or we're afraid to even do it for the fear of that we're not good enough. So we've come up with this thing we call failure. And by the way, saying that, I'm just not successful because I'm afraid of failing, that's just like a really polite and nice thing to say to yourself without really getting into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. So I'm going to give you a different way to look at failure right now. And I'm going to tell you, in my mind, there is no such thing as failure, because here's what I believe. Now, this is an example of a thought or a story. See, I've created a different story in my mind. And my story sounds like this. When I take an action, when I do something, I get one of two things. I either get the result that I want, which is good, right? Eventually we hope someone says yes to us, because they got to eventually say yes, right? So you take the action, someone says yes, okay, thank you, it worked out. But I will argue that the yeses actually do very little for you in the long term, because here's the greatest gift. It's what the other thing that could happen. You take an action, you either get the result you want or the lesson that you need. And what I want you to understand is, if you are stuck in your business right now, it's for one reason and one reason only. You have not got the lessons that you need at this point in your life to help you grow and develop as a spiritual being. Because here's the thing. We only grow through our nose. We only grow through the challenges and through the adversity. That's why when I look back, right, I'm so thankful for those first couple of years of struggle, because they made me who I am today. See, here's the thing that I believe. I believe that network marketing is a character development program with a compensation plan attached to it. And I believe that character is forged through challenges and no's and adversity. See, if you can change the way you look at no's, if your story and your belief that no's are an opportunity for me to learn and grow my character. Because I'll tell you this, the person that you become in the process of building the business is by far the greatest gift you will ever get. It is worth so much more than the money. And look, I remember people would say that. And I remember I was broke in this business for 2 years. I was as broke as you can be. I was 30 years old. I was living on a friend's couch in a basement apartment, trying to build a full-time network marketing business, scraping together dollars each day to go buy myself something to eat. Right? Now, I wasn't destitute. I just was financially broke. I've never been poor. See, there's a big difference between poor and broke. Poor is a state of mind. But I've been broke for a long time in my life, right? So I get it. But here's the thing, is it was the person that I was becoming of having to face this adversity over and over again, but continuing to move forward, growing and becoming more of myself. See, because character at the end of the day, that's the thing that's going to make you maintain your success. It's becoming somebody of a person of integrity and strong moral fiber, because this ultimately is what is going to attract the success to you that you want. So that's one of the stories and the beliefs that I want you to start adopting, is I want you to start looking at the no's differently, because if you believe what I believe about a no, then you'll go out there and you'll want to get them more. You'll embrace no's, because the more you get, the faster you grow, and then the more you'll actually start getting the yeses. Some of you have just stunted this process. You're not taking action, so you're not growing. I'd like to give you a different viewpoint, right? I'm gonna give you a different story and a different belief here. See, I came up with I founded something called the Legacy Leader Movement. I know I see a lot of legacy leaders on here now, so big shout out to all my legacy leaders. But I teach a philosophy called legacy leadership. It's a different way to go about building a network marketing business. It's a totally different mindset. I like to actually think of it as the purpose-driven approach to building a business. And legacy leadership is, if I could summarize it, it is building your business on the foundation of love, service, and giving. See, I believe one of the big problems that people have is they have a mindset of scarcity when it comes to their business, of not being enough, or they have this achievement mindset where they think if they're going to finally be happy and fulfilled when they hit that next rank. Like some of you think, man, when I hit diamond, every problem I have is going to be gone. I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be so fulfilled. And look, I got news for you. Your life financially will be much better when you hit diamond. But if you think diamond is the solution to your problems, you got another thing coming once you get there. Trust me. I can't tell you how many leaders that I have coached that have a scarcity mindset that are tremendously successful, that always think that the solution to their problem is that next level of achievement. Here's the problem. You can't win that race. How many of you have seen this in your own business where you get a rank, you hit that next rank, and you don't even give yourself more than 10 minutes to enjoy it, and it's already what's up next? That's scarcity. It's never enough. It's always more. And I've had so many top leaders that I talk to, and behind closed doors in private conversations, they say, Bob, I feel embarrassed to even say this. I'm just not excited about what I do anymore. I'm not passionate. I'm not feeling fulfilled by the work. And I'm financially, I'm incredibly successful, but you watch these people burn out because they just don't have it to do it anymore. And the reason why is because they're focusing on the wrong things. They're looking at Plexus as just a way for them to make money or hit a rank, or, it's feeding their ego. It's all about them. Get. See, legacy leadership is about give. Legacy leadership is not building your business from the place of scarcity or fear. It's building your business from you acknowledging that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you don't need to tie that worthiness to how big your check is. And if you can give to yourself that gift, it allows you to give to others. See, that's the problem. A lot of leaders, they can't get this whole thing of giving because you can't give to someone else what you haven't first given to yourself. So legacy leadership is purpose-driven, and it's based off this idea, this crazy idea that I have, that I really believe when it boils down to it. I talked about this at Maui last year. I believe that Plexus, your Plexus business, is really an assignment from God. And that assignment is to force you to finally start facing your fears so you can grow as a person and a spiritual being. And to the degree that you are willing to do that, you begin to discover a much bigger purpose for your life. And what I want you to understand is this: every single one of you has a unique purpose for your life. Look, I don't know all of you, but here's what I know about you because you're here. This is not an accident. There is a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you said yes to Plexus. There's a reason why you are on this Zoom tonight. See, despite all the challenges and adversity and heartache and all the stuff that you put yourself up with, you guys we're crazy for doing this business. You understand? Like, people that are in this business we're crazy. We're not normal, but that's like a good thing. Like, the stuff that we have to put up with every day to go out and try to build a business in this profession, it's not normal. But here's the thing about it is you should celebrate that, because you aren't like most people. Deep down inside, somewhere in your heart or soul, you know that there is something bigger out there for you. See, even in those first 2 years when I had no success, I had no visible evidence that was true, but I always believed it in my heart and in my soul. I just felt that God had something bigger planned for me. And look, I don't know all of your belief systems, God, universe, whatever it is for you. I respect everybody's belief, but what I want to wake you up to is that there is a higher power at play here. There is a higher power directing your steps. And here's the other part about that. If you acknowledge that part of what I just said, then I'm going to bring it home real hard for you with this second part. And here's what you also need to realize. Every single time that you do not acknowledge your own worth, you are slapping your loving creator in the face. Because what I know is, for me, the way I view it, God wouldn't put me in a position to have a big dream and a goal for my life without at least giving me somewhere inside of me what I need to make it happen, if I'm willing to go up and show up and do it the way that I was created to do. So why I'm sharing this with you is because my hope is this, that I can get you to start looking at Plexus a little bit differently. Because if you adopt a purpose-driven mentality, here's what you have to realize. That life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. That sometimes God doesn't give us what we want, he gives us what we need. And what we need is usually not what we want. So, and you all figured this out. You can't run from it in this business. Eventually you realize, I got to start facing these fears, right? Like, it's uncanny the way this works. You join Plexus, and right away, it's almost like a spotlight gets shined on all of your insecurities, all of the self-doubt, all of the darkest places that you have locked up inside of you. They get pulled to the surface. And that's where the character development process begins. See, what'll happen is, when you start taking action, when you start leveraging this process, when you start learning the lessons and facing your fear, you begin to transform as a person. Some of you have this limiting identity for yourself. Here's what will happen. Is if every day, if you can focus on showing up and doing something that's totally unnatural to you, like maybe just once a day facing a fear, reaching out to someone that's on your chicken list, bringing up Plexus when normally you just get stuck in relationship building mode all day long and you don't do nothing. You never say anything to anybody. It's like some of you are like a Plexus secret agent, and you got to get rid of that. People got to at least know you're in Plexus, right? Like, they're not going to. If you start doing little things, right, that are uncharacteristic of you, here's what begins to happen. Every single action you take is like a vote for your future self, for you becoming the person you want to be. And before you know it, you're just like, yeah, this is what I do. I do crazy stuff. I reach out to people. But that new identity, that new character is forged every single day through simple actions. And that brings me to the last thing I want to talk about here, and then we'll leave some time for questions. I believe that one of the biggest reasons why people don't succeed, and by the way, this does not just apply for this business, but certainly in this profession, is because success is boring. Success is boring. Do you know how boring it is saying and doing the same exact thing over and over, day after day, sending the same messages, answering the same questions, using the same third-party tools, handling the same objections, giving the same presentation, saying the same thing in training new people, having to talk them off the ledge the same way every single week. Look, leadership is repetition. That's what it is. It's just focusing on and saying the same handful of things until you're blue in the face and you don't even want to hear yourself say it again. And just then your team's probably going to finally start to get it. And they're going to drive you crazy every step of the way. That's success. Listen, greatness lies inside of consistency. It's just doing a little bit every single day. Some of you are using time as an excuse. Bob, I don't have enough time. That's a lie. It's never a time problem. It's always a priority problem. Look, when my wife and I, when we had our first son 20 months ago, we weren't sitting around 9-10 months before that saying, hey, honey, we got a lot of free time on our hands. Well, we should have a baby. Let's make a baby. We need to fill up all this just free, idle. No, we were already busy. We each had careers. We had a lot of stuff going on. But she got pregnant by the grace of God. We had a son. And then guess what we had to do? We had to make time, which is not easy. But he was a priority because now we have to keep this little human alive, right? See, there's a great analogy in that. Some of you need to treat your business like a newborn baby. See, if you make your business a priority, you will make time for it. And here's the other thing I've learned. If you can't create results in even just 5 hours a week, here's what I promise you. I could give you 50 hours a week to build your business. You'll still have no results. More time is not your solution. You need to learn how to become effective with the time that you have. You need to learn to focus on doing the right things. You need to make sure that this is in order. And when you can produce results in 5 hours, then you get the right to have more time. But it's built little block by block. That's the way that success is built in this profession. So that's what I had planned here. So I'll kick it back over to you, Jen. And if you want to ask me any questions, or if you want to have anybody else ask me some questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, that was amazing. I saw everybody on here making comments that they needed to hear all of that. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from you, Bob, over the last several years is how important it is, and it goes along with what you're saying, to focus on others. And when you have this story that you're telling yourself that is negative and it lacks confidence, other people can feel that.
Yeah.
And they're not attracted to that. Confidence is what attracts people to you.
Yeah.
And when you tell yourself this story that I'm not good enough, people feel that. And so you have to make, that's one of the biggest things I've learned is to make it about the other person, appreciation for the people that you're with, and turning the story back around on them rather than, talking so much. Let them talk, focus on them. But I feel like that if you're telling yourself this negative story, they're going to feel that. And so starting with that is so important.
Well, not only that, you just actually, I don't necessarily know that I've even ever really used this analogy, but I've certainly talked about this. The way that you feel about yourself will actually influence the way you lead the people on your team in a major way. And I'm going to tell you, I'll use an example from my own past experience. When I first finally started to build a team, I first started seeing success. I need to tell this story to I'll do a live about this because this is a good example. When I first started really getting a team and being in a position of leadership and having to train people and then hold them accountable for doing things, right? It's those uncomfortable situations where you got to call people out or push them and stuff like that. I really was lacking in my own self-belief, and I had a lot of issues of unworthiness that I didn't understand were there. But I can remember in my early days of leadership, I always let people off the hook. I never, I knew it was something they should have done, but I'm I just don't want to push them too hard, or I had all these stories in my mind. I don't want to seem like I'm being too bossy or this or that, or, and what I didn't understand is my own lack of belief in myself was not allowing me to show up in the way that I needed to for other people. And I was actually hurting their chances of success. and what I realized is when I finally got to the point where I was like, I am worthy, and I understood that this thing is important, I noticed that I really started working with people differently. I would not accept their excuses anymore. I would not be afraid to have tough conversations and call people out. And obviously, there's a finesse to this. You do it in a loving, compassionate way, but I stopped accepting other people's excuses because I knew it was my responsibility to take a stand for them because no one else was going to. And that all came out of me finally realizing that I was enough. And I think so that's another really important thing to understand is you need to really deal with these issues and these stories because that you have a responsibility to the people on your team to show up for them the way they need you to show up.
Yeah, and so many people are giving, they're leaders and they're giving back to their team. They're filling their cup. Like you always say, fill the cup before you ask for anything in return. These people are filling the cup, but they have to have the confidence to attract these people to do what they're doing. So I think that is so great. Okay, one question that I wanted to ask that seems to come up all the time. With Plexus, we're that we're very product based. We're not your old school network marketing where we go and show the plan and circle the pyramid and all that stuff. We start with the products and our belief is in the product. So most of us are not trained network marketers. We're not professional people. A lot of us are stay-at-home moms. We're moms that have 9-to-5 jobs. We're just, we're not trained to go out and be salespeople. And so we have a harder time finding people that actually want to do the business because most people start out for the most of us here started out for the products. I signed up to be a wholesale person. I never expected this to turn into a business. So those are the kind of people we attract into Plexus.
Yep.
What advice would you give to people that feel like they're bringing people in all the time as team members and customers, but they can't find people that actually want to work the business because that's not where our focus is?
Yeah. So I've got maybe a different opinion on this than most. I would make the argument, and by the way, this is probably one of the number one challenges that people have, like finding what they call business builders, which are just people willing to go out and do the work. I would argue that it's not so much that you're not finding people that could be business builders. You're just bringing them into the business the wrong way. And you're discouraging them from even wanting to try, or they're trying to go out and do it the same way you did, but they're not as good as you and they're failing. So you just think you don't have business builders. So let me unpack this for you. A lot of times when I work with people, when they're struggling, you'll hear basically this kind of a scenario where they've done a good job getting customers. And some of them even have done a good job personally recruiting people, but they've seen little to no duplication happening. Well, I can guarantee you, if there's never been a single person in that scenario, that it isn't for this one reason why that happens, because you're talking too much. It is literally the only reason ever why you'll have a bunch of customers and nobody wants to do the business. Here's why. Because all of the people that tried your products, they don't see themselves doing what you did to them to get someone else to buy. See, now here's the problem we have though. We don't view it as selling because we're just excited. We want to share the products. We joined Plexus and then we learned a bunch of stuff about gut health and all this other stuff. And we just want to tell everybody, we want to explain, we're so excited. But what we don't understand is they perceive that as selling. And that's not a simple thing for people to do. So what winds up happening is a lot of you, just through your excitement, people are like, yeah, I need this thing. I want to do that. But then when you say, hey, well, you should do this as a business, here's what they think about. Do I want to do what she just did to me? And the answer most of the time is no. I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the ability, right? Like like, if you hear this from people consistently, or like if you've heard this more than just a couple of times, you know, I'm not a salesperson, or, oh, I mean, I could see how you would be good at something like that, but I couldn't do that. It's because you're talking too much. That's it. It's the only reason why. Now, here's the other side of it. If you put too much of this on your shoulder, see, I call this making yourself the expert. When you do all the explaining and you answer all the questions, sometimes people will join, but then they'll go out and try to do the same thing that you did with a fraction of the knowledge and barely any of the confidence and belief or ability. And they go out and they try it with 2 to 3 people, and it doesn't go really well at all, and they get discouraged and they quit. And then you just say, well, they're not a business builder. Well, you didn't even set them up for success. Now, that's not to say that some people can't just go out and do it regardless, because some of you didn't need your hand held. You did it wrong, but you made it work. But most people are never going to be you. So one of your most important roles as a leader is you have to learn how to look at the way that you're prospecting, the way that you're bringing people into the business, and the way that you're getting customers, and make sure that you are keeping things simple. Because, and look, I already told you I didn't recruit a single person my first year. I didn't recruit a single person my first year because I talked so much, right? I had a background in sales. I was in medical sales. So I thought I knew everything. I had a nice little ego. And I remember joining and I went to the training, and our system was, ask because I was marketing long distance phone service. We weren't even asking people for money. And I were like, ask people to do you a favor. So that was our script. Hey, would you do me a huge favor and try my service? And I remember I went to the training. I just kind of laughed. I'm like, yeah, that's real cute. Like, okay, you go do that. I'm going to go do, I'm a salesperson. I'm going to go do what I do, and I'm going to really get this thing going. And I fell flat on my face. And it wasn't until finally I got to the point where I'm like, man, I can't take this any longer. I really had to look at myself in the mirror and say, what are these people doing differently? And I became coachable, and I went out and I put my ego aside and I just did it, even though it was really uncomfortable and it felt super unnatural. I went out and I tried it, and I was like, holy, you know what? This thing works, right? And my mentor's like, yeah, figure that. I told you a year ago it was going to work, but you didn't listen to me, right? So what I've come to learn is this. When it comes to prospecting, the less you say, the more you will make. You must show people this is a simple business. Now, I'm going to tell you this. There's nothing harder than saying less if you're used to saying too much. So when I say less, what does that mean? Well, it means you have to learn how to start using third-party tools. You got to use videos. You got to let the sample do the work for you. You got to show them the website, the brochures, the calls, get them on the phone with someone else, put them into the Facebook group. You can't be the one doing the explaining and answering the questions. I know you want to, right? I know it feels unnatural not to, but unless you are showing them. See, when I finally got this and I started saying less, it was amazing, because all of a sudden I was used to people just saying I'm not interested. And then all of a sudden people were like, yeah, this looks interesting. I was like, it does? They're like, yeah, it does. Because I was showing them it was simple. Or if somebody said to me, I don't know if I can do that, I'd be like, what do you mean? You can't press play on a video for someone? And then if they're interested, get them on the phone with someone else and have that person help you enroll them into you can't do that? Like what part of that do you think you can't do? See, we really have to step back, and we need to look at a prospecting system. Because if you're just doing all the explaining and talking, that's not a system. That's not something that someone can easily duplicate. It's really intimidating. This is also the reason why I promise you, so many people that are on your team, they don't even try to get business partners because it is so intimidating for them to even think about explaining that part of the business. So they feel okay talking about customers, so they just get customers, but they're either really bad at explaining the business or they don't even try. And that's the reason why your team's not duplicating. See, if you can start with yourself, if you can make it simple, start saying less, you'll start bringing people into the business that will go out and do what you did. And then all of a sudden, you got business builders, right? Like anybody can be a business builder if they have the desire and you show them the right way to do it. look, I'm telling you, that lesson right there, it took me years and years to learn. And it's not something you're easily going to change overnight if you've been doing it the wrong way, but it is the most important thing that you can do to start creating more of what you want on your team.
Yeah, and I love how you always say, from the very minute that you open your mouth or send them a message, that is your prospecting, even if it's just a customer.
You're training them how to do the business from the moment you open your mouth to them, even if you're just trying to get them as a customer first.
Yes.
See, because what's going to happen is a week or two later, when you say, hey, you should do this thing, they're going to think back to that first interaction they had with you and say, can I do that? So you've got to really, really be conscious of the way that you're approaching this part of your business.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, like you said, they learn so much about our products that's the first thing they want to start talking about. And then you might get customers really easily because people want those products, but they're not going to think they can do that because they don't feel like they can know all that stuff.
Yeah. If you like, the things that you can do is share your personal testimonial about the products. Share your story, how the products change your life. Share your story about how the business is finally giving you a vehicle to get more of what you want. Share someone else's story. You can tell stories all day, every day. You need to do that. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty of the facts and the figures and the features and the benefits and the details, you got to let somebody other than yourself do that in order to demonstrate the simplicity of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, there's a question in the comments about how do you get the buy-in from your family that this is an important work, even though you're not bringing a ton of money at the time? And I want to hear your answer, Bob, but coming from me, that may not ever happen. And as a diamond, I have people in my family that still don't think what I do is important, or that I have people, my own family, that will say, well, since you're home, why don't you do this, this, and this? And I'm like, well, what else do you have to do?
Yeah.
And people don't. It's the way our business. I think anybody that works from home probably has these kind of same issues. People think that people who work from home don't do anything, that they have all this extra free time on their hands. But that would be, just coming from me, it's never going to, it doesn't matter how successful you get. There's some people that will never buy into what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, is that they might not ever buy in, and you just need to be okay with that, because you can't control what other people think or say or do about your business. So why even bother worrying about that? Now, at the same time, I do acknowledge, like, if we're talking about like a spouse or something like that does make things a little more challenging, right? But what I would say is you need to be honest with yourself. Okay. You need to be honest with yourself. Have you really showed up the way that you need to in order to make money? Is this a business, or is this a hobby? Is this something you just do when you feel like it, and you just like being around people because they're nice and they make you feel good? But you really, if you're honest with yourself, you just spend most of your day on Facebook, watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading books, getting on trainings, but you never do nothing. Or, and I would, and I'm not trying to call people out here, because look, I'm like talking to myself. I was that way for like 2 years of my business. I just didn't, I hadn't, look, I'll put it to you like this. And this is not always what somebody wants to hear, but it's the reality. And if you haven't figured out by now that I'm not going to tell you what you want, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, but I'm going to do it from a place of love and compassion and really wanting to see you win. But you have the life you have because that's the life you're willing to put up with. You have the life that you are willing to put up with today. See, eventually I got to a point where it hurt enough that I got up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I need to stop looking for the one right person that's going to change my business. And I need to start becoming and acting like the one right person that's going to change my business. See, because when we are honest with ourselves and we take responsibility, because I really fell victim of blame. Okay. It was always someone else's fault or something else's fault. When you take responsibility and you say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to show up every single day. Here's sometimes what begins to happen. you start to see results. Or maybe you've been doing it, but now you're realizing I just been doing it the wrong way. So I got to start fixing things, because look, sometimes that unsupportive spouse or that unsupportive family member, they think they have your best interest in mind because they see you out there trying to make this thing happen, and they think you're working, but you know now you really weren't working, if you're honest with yourself. But they think you're working, and they don't see any money coming in. And you want to know what? If you're honest with yourself, I bet you wouldn't feel any different if the shoe was on the other foot. So I think sometimes we have to learn how to have compassion for people that we think are attacking us, that really see us in a different light that sometimes we can't see ourselves. And so if we start showing up differently, look, I'll tell you what, there is nothing that will change the tune of an unsupportive family member or spouse than when they start see the money coming in, right? That they go from, your spouse will go from like, man, you got another one of those trainings tonight you got to get on, right? When you're not making any money. Then when the money starts coming in, he's like, honey, isn't your training tonight? Yeah, you haven't been on a training in a while. Go out, get trained, make more money, right? So money is it will solve problems. But here's the other thing is this, and this was, I've been in relationships before. My wife has always been supportive of what I do, but I've been in relationships with people that didn't get network marketing and always made it difficult for me to do what I did. And I always wanted to try to change them. I remember sitting in a personal development seminar one time, and the speaker said something. I was like, man, that's so good. Like if you're sitting in a training and you're hearing something and your first thought is, oh, my husband needs to hear that. My wife needs to hear that one, right? They said, if you're the first thing that you think of is how bad they need it, you need it more than they do. Because what I've learned is you can't change other people. The only thing you ever can do is change the way that you are in relation to other people. So, that would be some of the advice that I would give you if you're dealing with that in your life right now.
Awesome. Okay, my last question is, how important is it for people to get to convention?
Well, I mean, we used to always say that leaders were created at major events. They really are. See, I always used to struggle with this before I really became somebody that like never missed an event. But here's what I found. The thing that most of you are missing so badly is belief. If you truly believed in what you are doing, you would not have a problem going out and sharing it with every single person you know. And there's three key areas of belief. There's belief in yourself, there's belief in Plexus, and there's belief in the profession of network marketing. And if you don't have strong belief in all three of those areas, you're going to struggle in your business. Here's what events do. Events are, especially, like national events, they're immersive, right? You get out of the normal distractions of your everyday life, right? You immerse yourself in the environment of Plexus and possibility and hope. Like I can remember, you get on that plane and it's almost like the moment you step on the plane, something happens to you, right? It's just like, oh, like all the worries and everything, it just leaves you for a couple of days, right? And what I found is that when you're at an event like that, number one, it absolutely builds your belief in the company, because you really get a chance to see what the company's all about and meet people that are a key part of making decisions that impact you. You really start believing in the profession and the vehicle of network marketing, because you meet and hear so many other people's stories of success. And what you realize is these people that you look up to when you meet them in the hotel lobby, or you hear them talk on stage, or you run into them in the elevator, they're no different than you are. They are literally no different, and their stories are very similar to what you're going through today. So you really start realizing, wow, this is possible. And you start believing more in yourself. And what happens is you wind up leaving the event with such a stronger belief in all these areas. And it's almost like kind of this invisible force that starts at play. And you'll go back and you'll start doing things you never would have thought of doing before. And what I've found is that a lot of times, if you can use the inspiration that you get off of an event like that, literally in the 30 to 60 days after leaving that event, if you take the necessary action, you can set up your business for the entire rest of the year. Like literally in a 30 to a 60-day period of going all out and really showing up, you can literally create enough momentum in your business to last you the entire year until you're probably starting to need the event again. And then here it is next year. So I'm a huge believer in events. I believe that you're in plexus when you join. When you go to a national event, plexus becomes in you. It really is a part of who you are. And so I'm a huge believer. And obviously, look, it don't make a difference to me if you go to the event. You're not my downline. I don't make any money on it. But I really, truly believe that it's one of the most important things you can do for your eventual success.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bob. I want to give a shout out. There's a guy on our team that is on the call. I don't know that you can see him on your screen, but his name is Greg Sears, and he is with us from his hospital bed tonight.
Wow, I think I see him.
Yeah, Greg has been fighting cancer for a long time, and he actually got some pretty devastating news this week. And we're all like, we really love him a lot. We affectionately call him King Daddy, and I'm very moved that he's on the call tonight, and he loves you a lot. But we wanted to give him a shout out, and we're so happy that he came on the call tonight.
Wow. Well, Greg, I'll keep you in my prayers, brother. Keep fighting, man. I appreciate your support. You're an inspiration to a lot of people, man. So keep pushing.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. That will mean the world to him, I know. Bob, we so appreciate you being on this call, the generosity that you have, and what brought me to you in the first place was all the lives that you did on your Facebook for free for such a long time before you ever did the Leadership Academy. And you poured into people for so long that people really felt like they knew you and trusted you. And so many people on our team are members of the Leadership Academy and listen to your podcast and watch your lives still. And just the fact that you were on our call tonight just means the world to me. And I appreciate it. I've learned so much from you, and I know we all have that are on this call. And thank you so much for your time. I know you took time away from your little boy and your wife, and really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, and I appreciate everyone's support, and anything I can do to help, let me know.
All right. Thank you. We will see you at convention.
All right. Take care, everybody.
We are so excited you're coming.
See ya.
Bye.